Good afternoon. My name is Miriam Aliso, and I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Parent Centers and Pre-ETS across the country. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. To the right of the GoToWebinar PowerPoint viewer is the GoToWebinar control panel. This is where you have the option to select the way you hear the webinar, raise your hand, and ask questions by text. You have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions for staff pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. You can also download the webinar PowerPoint on the GoToWebinar control panel. You will notice on your screen a screenshot of an example of the GoToWebinar interface. You should see something that looks like this on your computer desktop in the upper right corner. You are listening in using your computer's system by default. If you prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and dial in. Information will be displayed. Be sure to put in your unique PIN. Also, the control panel will collapse automatically when not in use. To keep it open, click the View menu and uncheck Auto Hide Control Panel. Today's presentation will be recorded and will be available on the RAISE website. Keep in mind that we have a lot of material to cover. We have 1 hour, but if we extend after an hour, we'll have the Q&A session after. If you don't mind staying, that would be great. Now we have Peg.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Peg Kinsel. I co-direct the RAISE Center with Josie Badger. Also want to thank Miriam Alizo and Maria Rodriguez, also staff of the RAISE Center, helping us today. The RAISE Center is funded by RSA to provide technical assistance and support to 7 RSA PTIs across the country. And today we will hear from 4 of them around Pre-ETS, what they're doing, what support they can give, and what information you might gain to help you at your centers. So we really appreciate their expertise, their willingness to share it with us. And with no further ado, Tanya, why don't you just start us off?
Welcome, everyone. We appreciate you taking your time today to join us to hear a bit more about Pre-ETS across the country. Today, our panel is made up of the following individuals, and each of us will be taking time to talk about our area and our region. But first, next slide. We'd like to just start by reminding people what Pre-ETS is and the purpose. So pre-employment transition services, or Pre-ETS as it is commonly known, is what we're here to talk about today. Next slide. So what are Pre-ETS? We all have the technical definition of what Pre-ETS are, but when you think about the purpose and the reason that Pre-ETS has existed, is it's really to help introduce young adults to the world of work, help them explore and find out and discover what type of work they want to do, what type of work is out there, what are the education requirements, and where can they gain access to that education so they can work and develop those skills to eventually reach the career that they are hoping to achieve. Next slide. So how is someone eligible for Pre-ETS services? It must be a student with a disability. They range between the age of 14, 21 years old. They must be enrolled in an educational program. And if you're between 14 and 21, that could be school, it could be college, as long as you are actively enrolled in some type of education program. You must also be potentially eligible for VR services or eligible for Section 504 in the Rehabilitation Act and American with Disabilities Act. Or you could be receiving some type of special education supports and services under a individualized education plan or IEP. This last one is on here as a reminder that we all across the states have similar requirements for eligibility, but there are some nuances depending on your state. So we want to encourage you to make sure you understand within your state what the eligibility criteria is for Pre-ETS services. In New York State, one of those nuances is that if an individual has already applied to our VR system and it has been found that they do not benefit from services, they are not eligible for Pre-ETS services. So again, just want to encourage you to make sure you look at the full eligibility criteria of your state, because it could be different than some of us who are here sharing information today. Next slide. So within the Pre-ETS services, there are 5 different areas where we can provide support to these youth as they're looking forward to their future. So just as a reminder, some of these services are job exploration counseling. As we know, sometimes individuals know what they want to do. Sometimes they think they know. Sometimes they have 2 or 3 things. So being able to counsel them to help them kind of narrow it down or figure it out is very beneficial to kind of help direct the direction that they may have. There could be work-based learning experiences. So basically this is when they are taking, you know, the experience right out into the community. So we can practice, we can talk, we can learn, but now we're actually going to go out into the community and we're going to implement those skills and those things that we have been working on. Counseling on opportunities for enrollment in comprehensive transition or post-secondary ed programs. Again, just a way to help this individual do research, figure out what would work for them, what are they looking for, what type of education do I need in that job, career, or field. The workplace readiness training. This is really working on a lot of those social skills and those soft skills that are needed to keep the job. So giving them an opportunity, a lot of these young adults may have never had any type of employment before. So this could be the first time, and this is really helping set them up in order to be a good employee. And then instruction and self-advocacy. Self-advocacy is a lot more than just speaking for yourself or speaking up. So helping them develop those skills to make sure that on the job site that they are getting what they need, that they can express, you know, things that do make that job better. So that's just a quick review of what we're here to discuss today. Next slide. And now I will turn it back to Beth.
Thanks, Tanya. It's good to be a part of this today, and thank you all for participating. I'm going to take just a little time to talk about some of the challenges that we have experienced as an RSA Parent Center. And our particular RSA Parent Center does work with a group other parents of PTIs or parent centers, kind of in the middle to western part of the country. And so we've learned a lot as we've been working together about the challenges, the opportunities, the roles, and the strategies that folks are using. So I'm going to just take a little time to go over some of those lessons learned to kind of help us set the stage. And then we're going to move forward to the other three, the three parent centers that are going to talk more specifically about how they as parent centers are working and engaging with pre-employment transition services. So here's some of the challenges. Professionals don't, and I think some of these things we all say, yes, that's so true. But it's good, I think, to kind of point them out and think about them. So professionals don't always understand the role of the family, particularly as youth are transitioning and beyond transition. And, you know, in everyone's zeal to promote self-determination and self-advocacy, which is totally extremely important, I think sometimes parents and the role of parents can get lost in that. And so it's important for parent centers to be making sure that everybody recognizes that people need their families beyond transition age. Everyone does. And then next, that systems don't always understand the role of parent centers. Again, I think we can all agree with that. And so helping systems, the systems, and those are newer systems sometimes for those of us who are parent centers, because it is VR, it is independent living, it is those adult focused kinds of systems, and helping them understand the role of our center, our connections with families, the fact that we have a handle on the issues of families and youth as they as youth are moving through transition. Then the lack of a holistic approach, and we see that this is certainly an issue that's broader than Pre-ETS services, but in particular related to Pre-ETS because of those domains or the areas that Tanya listed earlier that are part of Pre-ETS. We have seen that some systems are implementing Pre-ETS in kind of a disjointed way, a fragmented way. And we know that young people really need a holistic approach because, and this always makes me think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how important it is to pay attention to those basic needs, including belonging, and not skip ahead and expect that we're going to help young people to become self-fulfilled if we're not attending to the whole person. We all understand how families can often defer to professionals and to professional expertise, and yet they have an important role to play. And then, of course, the new challenges emerging around the COVID-19 pandemic, and I believe some of the presenters that follow are going to be addressing that more specifically. Next slide, please. So what is the parent center's role, or what are the important roles in which parent centers are needed in relation to Pre-ETS? And certainly we all recognize that our main role as parent centers, of course, is to inform and train families and youth. But then that additional piece of helping to assure systems accountability to the Workforce Innovations and Opportunity Act, of which Pre-ETS is a part. Sometimes I think, as we do learn as parent centers, by informing and helping families to become, and youth to become empowered about and gain knowledge about what the intent of legislation is and of these policies and practices of systems, then we're helping them to speak up and to stand up for what they need. But then we also have other ways as parent centers where we can be engaged at the family youth level, but also at the state and national level in assuring accountability. It's so important, and this is really a part of the one above, to bring family and youth perspectives, both to policymakers and to providers, those folks who are putting these services into practice. Facilitating and supporting holistic, authentically person-centered approaches, so that we don't have that fragmentation that can often come when things are looked at only in fragmented ways and with only the professional perspective and opinion engaged in that. And then the final one, actually partnering with Pre-ETS agencies to provide Pre-ETS services. And you are going to hear about some examples of that as you hear from the other speakers today. And can you go to the next slide, please? I mentioned earlier that our RSA Parent Information and Training Project does work with some other parent centers in our area. And one of those is the Kansas PTI, Families Together. And I had mentioned to Leah Hawley that I was going to mention them and just ask her, Leah, if you were able to be on the call today, and I'll have to ask Miriam to unmute Leah's mic if she's on, for you to just take a couple of minutes to give a quick overview of how you at Families Together are actually engaging with your providers and policymakers to assure implementation of Pre-ETS services. Is Leah there, Miriam? I can't see the list of who is on the call. And she may not have been able to make it today. So we'll go ahead and move on. I know having some extra time for you to hear from the other presenters and also to...
Hi, Beth. This is Leah.
Oh, you're there. Okay. Thanks, Leah.
I can't hear you now.
Yeah.
Thank you for... Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear
Thank
you.
you for including Families Together in this discussion. I think the partnership with Pre-ETS is vital to the success of our transition age youth, and especially during COVID and as schools and communities attempt to, in this new norm, figure out how to do transition and truly meet the individual needs. With the way we have a training called a Family Employment Awareness Training that we do 3 of these trainings across the state, and it's a 2-day training that was developed 8 years ago, and several states have now are now using the same curriculum, but we started our partnership with Pre-ETS through that training, having them come on the second day to provide an overview of Pre-ETS and to talk about the services and give parents and professionals an opportunity to not only ask questions, but make that one-to-one connection with that Pre-ETS manager or Pre-ETS counselor in their region. From that, our next step was the Pre-ETS manager, state manager, coordinator contacted us, and we actually provided a training, a virtual training for, this was a year and a half ago, I believe, for all of the Pre-ETS staff on special education law, on transition to adulthood, section 504, and we also provided an overview of behavioral supports, because sometimes behavior impedes our youth's ability to access those community-based opportunities or just any kind of educational opportunity. So it's important for them to understand that process as far as the special education process all the way through the transition to adulthood was one we also did. So that partnership has continued to build, and our staff are all trained and knowledgeable in the Pre-ETS process, and make sure when we're talking to families about Pre-ETS or about transition that we are asking them, is your child receiving Pre-ETS services? In Kansas, Pre-ETS begins at age 16. And so asking families, and if families don't know anything about it, we're connecting them with the Pre-ETS manager or coordinator in their area. So that direct connection, because like Beth said, there are some obstacles, and one of our obstacles has been that some of our Pre-ETS in some school districts have had some challenges accessing students, just based on them wanting to provide services during the school day versus after school. And so that has been a challenge, but with our partnership, we've been able to help families advocate for those services to be provided when the child actually needs the services. We also, through the RSA and our shift training, transition to adulthood training, our Pre-ETS state manager actually reviewed all of the curriculum regarding VR and Pre-ETS so that we could make sure our message to families is the same message that they are giving to professionals. And so we wanted to make sure that there was some continuity there. We are working closely, our state is working to improve transition, and part of that is we're part of the Intact Virtual Capacity Building Institute, and it's the State Department of Education as well as Pre-ETS manager and myself from Families Together are on that team. So we're working very closely as a part of that team, and Pre-ETS has been on our state level transition work group along with Families Together. And so we're that voice of parents and helping parents understand, and then helping others understand the parents, how to work with parents, and how to, not just parents, but those transition age youth. Because I actually went in and did a training for our Pre-ETS team on working with youth who have complex needs, more significant disability support needs. And as a parent of a young man with autism, significant autism, I was able to provide that parent perspective to those individuals. We also have a website for transition to adulthood specific to COVID resources. And so we're sharing those with our Pre-ETS team, and they're sending some to us, resources that we can add, so that collaboration. And then the person-centered planning. We use the life course framework in Kansas. And so we are partnering with our schools to use that person-centered planning, and have been in conversations with Pre-ETS about what we're using, and as that is a tool that they may be able to use as well. But that's a really quick snapshot of what we have done with Pre-ETS and how our partnership continues to evolve with them in Kansas.
Thank you, Leah, so much for
You're muted,
sharing.
Beth.
And if you are willing, and if people wanted
you're
to
muted.
ask you questions, oh, sorry. Can you unmute me, Miriam? Can you all hear me now?
We hear you.
Okay, so thanks very much, Leah. And can you, if you are willing, you may want to put your email address in the chat so that if people have specific questions, they can ask you, but certainly I can understand if you may not want to do that. But I am going to move on now. Looks like we have the my final slide up here, and it's not really mine. Would you go back one, please? Thanks. This is just a resource we all wanted to highlight for you all. The WinTAC Technical Assistance Center, which is the Workforce Innovation Technical Assistance Center, has what we have all found to be possibly the best, just basic kind of overview of information about what is pre-employment transition services. This is from a national WIOA-based perspective. As Tanya said earlier, it does. There are some uniquenesses to each state, but certainly this is to set the stage and be the guidance for all of the states. So we want to share that with you. And now I am going to turn this back over to Tanya to talk about what's going on in New York. And thanks, everybody.
Thank you for sharing all that information, Beth. So now we'll start moving on to the different states. So I'm here to talk about New York, but I need to clarify, in New York, when Pre-ETS first came out from our VR system, which is called Access VR, it was decided in New York that certain regions would Am I back? Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
sorry about that. So I just want individuals to know that my perspective is from Western New York and the Buffalo area. I am not speaking for the rest of the state. So next slide. So how are we making it work in Western New York? Throughout all of this, I think the one thing we found, it's all about the relationships. It's about developing them. It's about culturing them and supporting them. A lot of relationships with the school districts, which most of us already had, but then we've taken it a step farther and we've actually reached out to organizations that work with youth in general. And then we try to find those youth that do have learning differences and try to organize and work with them just to get the information out there to more individuals. We've spent time on our marketing campaign, making sure that the young adults, their families, and the professionals really understand and know what those services are and how those services are available. And as a group, we have ongoing meetings, and these meetings are to talk about our challenges, about our successes, but really maintaining communication with each other so we all know what each other is doing and kind of being on the same page. Next slide. So for our area in Western New York, we actually have 2 different groups of agencies and organizations that were awarded the Pre-ETS. So the approach that we have taken, and fortunately, Parent Network, we are actually part of both groups, which means we get to service our whole regional area. We have one group called Pre-ETS Works, and they work specifically in one of our counties, and they are made up of 4 partner agencies and organizations. And then our other group is a bit larger, Promote Youth. They cover 4 different counties, and there's a total of 9 partner agencies. So both groups, even though they are, there's a little overlap, these 2 different groups in our area allow for us to reach more youth, which means we are covering urban, suburban, and rural areas to make sure that these young adults could potentially get some of these supports and services. Next slide. So what are some of the challenges? And I'm pretty sure for all of us, there's going to be a theme throughout this whole presentation that the pandemic has really impacted the way we do business, the way we live day to day, and the way that we provide supports and services. So some of our big challenges in Western New York is that the pandemic did, like similar areas, had literally shut everything down. Everything was closed. We had a lot of restrictions on where we could go and what we could do. And this forced our schools into the distance learning, virtual remote model of education. So it became very tough to get access to the students for a couple different reasons. For us, we were really just beginning to implement the Pre-ETS. You know, we had gotten approval for plans and the curriculums and, you know, all of that stuff when suddenly everything shut down. So there were a few weeks where there was no movement of anything because of the total shutdown. But then it also became, you know, a little overwhelming for the young adults and the families. A lot of forced, you know, using technology, not really being familiar with it. And the Pre-ETS program kind of became a, like it kept moving further and further down the list on the school priorities of what they needed to get done. And that is totally understandable. There, you know, there were a lot of things that needed to happen for our educational system. And then once things settled down a little bit, some of that challenge was that there was still a lack of knowledge about what Pre-ETS was, what it could offer, and who could be eligible. Next slide. So through the meetings of our groups and our conversations, some of the things that we have done and we continue to do today, because we are not back up, we are just starting to find out what our education system will look like for this year. So, but throughout all of this, virtually, the groups have kept meeting, the providers, the agencies, and we've been having those ongoing conversations about, okay, what's happening? What are you doing? How are you doing it? You know, any ideas, any opportunities you see coming up? We have attend as much as possible. Our school administrators have different types of monthly meetings, and being part of those, and being part of those as being supportive of asking, how can we help you? What can we do to help you, you know, meet those student needs? It's also helped us reach out and connect and develop relationships a little bit more of some of those other community agencies that work with youth that aren't necessarily school-based. to kind of figure out, well, how can we help you? Because the benefit of some of those is that they have residential programming. So it was possible to actually gain some access to some youth to provide some of these supports throughout this time in the close downs. We used each other's listservs, marketing, social media to develop, materials, flyers, little commercials, information about what Pre-ETS is and why you may want to look into that for your young adult, or for young adults themselves to reach out, thinking that these services would be something that they would want. And then we just keep having ongoing conversations. Like many of you, I've attended a lot of webinars over the past few months about engagement. And now it's moved from basic engagement to virtual engagement. How do we engage people when we don't have the capacity to do, or the ability to do, those face-to-face connections anymore? So it's an ongoing process. Next slide. So some of the things that we've done, to help with that is that we had to come up with some ideas, and we have to kind of get creative about them. One of the ideas that we have found some success with is creating virtual opportunities, like specific 1-hour webinars around things on, like, searching for a job, interview skills, and putting it out there, hoping that youth would, sign on. Or sometimes we even get families who will attend, and then that kind of helps, them understand that process, which then they can be a support to their young adults. We've continued and maintained those relationships that we did have. We've kind of taken, the approach of, it's more about what can we do for you? Let us help you. Let us take something off your plate, because it works out for everyone. One, the youth are engaged in working towards something. Two, it does help the school meet some of the educational expectations when it comes to transitioning and getting ready to move into the adult world. And always looking for those other connections. Who else is out there? Who else do we see that, has a good following that of youth that we could tap into to help get these supports and services out there? On our creative end of it, we've probably used social media a lot more than we thought that we would, to provide the information, to provide the opportunities of letting families know what is out there and how to gain access to it. We have each, between the two groups, all of us have a listserv or a system of how we share upcoming events with families. So we have used that multiple times, letting families know that it doesn't need to go through the school or through an organization. The families themselves could reach out to get connected to those supports and services. And the one thing that we have really come to terms with is that the way we used to do business is not how it will be done moving forward. So we really need to be okay with thinking outside the box and being flexible, figuring out how to make it work, not just for us, but for that youth and that family. So those are just a few things that are going on in New York State. So now I would like to turn it over to Leslie.
Good afternoon and greetings from Massachusetts. My name is Leslie, and I'm with the Federation for Children with Special Needs, and our RSA grant was entitled the Link Center. The Link was not an acronym. It was more about linking families and students to resources that they need. So what are we doing in Massachusetts? We're trying to connect families and youth with accurate and user-friendly information. One thing that we had going for us was a wonderful relationship with our state, the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission, and we had put together a family guide to transition services in Massachusetts, a small booklet. It was available in English and Spanish. We gave away over 10,000 hard copies in both languages in the first couple of years, and it's now available online. And that's still being used as a guide. And what we found is that we used this grant and the energy around it to really, we were a one state RSA center, and we really wanted to bump up transition planning, and work and vision around youth accessing work opportunities, work exploration in Massachusetts. So that was the focus in the early years of our grant. Next slide. So we started to build on those relationships, not only with our MRC, the Mass Rehab Commission, but also our independent living centers. We did direct outreach to all 11 centers in the state. We have been presenting at their annual conference. We're providing training for them, and just building a collaboration within our state around getting youth access to work opportunities. The other thing that we sat down with our state VR agency was to talk to them about the family support role and how key that was for youth to be successful. These were youth in high school that may not have access to transportation and needed some skill building, and how important that family role was. And so we entered a really unique partnership to provide that family support for all the students that were accessing Pre-ETS services through our state and ultimately the vendor system that they developed. Our state moved forward to have those services delivered by over 30 different vendors throughout the state. So we've had to build relationships with all of those vendors, supporting their work, supporting school districts. And there's been a lot of training going on, a lot of collaboration, a lot of conversation. And we're finding that each part of our state works a little differently. So each of our, local VR agency, local school districts have to work a little bit differently. So that's been a unique opportunity for us to find out a little bit more about our state and, react and provide the services that are most appropriate for those regions. And I think what's really exciting is that we've started to link students and families together. We've used this as an opportunity to do a lot more outreach to youth, something the Federation hadn't done, and this just, started the ball rolling. That's just really taken off. Next slide. So we've embedded Pre-ETS into all of our parent center work. We started with training our own staff, especially our outreach team, so that we could be more culturally sensitive around the language that we were using, about the materials, the flyers, the brochures. The Federation does a lot of gathering people together, and we're going to be doing it virtually this year. So we have an annual conference, and we made sure that there was a full transition workshop strand within that conference, so that families really could have opportunities to learn together. And that's a conference that attracts both families and professionals, over 1,000 people. And we're going online this year. We invited our state agencies to have exhibitor tables, so families could really, actually sit down and ask questions of those professionals. This past year, we had to meet the commissioner. So the commissioner showed up, and they were available to talk directly to families. And that was a wildly successful, opportunity to make those direct connections. All of our vendors were invited to have tables at our conferences, and also to be presenters. So we're building those partnerships. I think you've heard that word lots today about making all the partnerships to make it all happen. We have a 2-day Planning a Life conference for parents and professionals. And not only in our Planning a Life, but even in the Visions of Community Conference, we've started youth conferences, conferences within conferences. In our Planning a Life, we have a panel of youth come and talk about not only their vision for their future, but their work experiences and, you know, how they have navigated into, you know, different types of internships or even employment. And those have been the strongest things, is for families and professionals to hear directly from youth about their experiences, what worked for them, and, you know, to involve them in the conversation. And we've been all informed by youth. We've also jumped into the social media. We were doing Facebook live stream. We jumped you know, into doing daily live stream in the spring. We're doing weekly now, but we're really addressing some topics in short kinds of you know, sessions so that it's accessible to families and youth. And we're finding that, you know, where are people? They are on Facebook right now. They are coming in and watching some of our virtual presentations. So anything you can do to shift your learning online, make it accessible, and just realize that people have a lot on their plate. So try to make things short and to the point. And if you could break down one of your workshops or some of your topics into small mini topics and make it accessible, we're uploading to YouTube. And so all of our things are available in those platforms. And the training piece has been key in Massachusetts. We realized that, you know, our state agency had never worked with youth and high schools. And so that a lot of training had to happen, not only among our staff and how we work with them, among the VR staff, working interagencies, the Independent Living Center professionals, and school districts. And so we've done a lot of work to go out to school districts, to talk to families, to talk to educators about Pre-ETS so that they understand what it is and start referring families. We have a wonderful relationship that every student that's referred to Pre-ETS has an opportunity to talk to us and to, you know, express their concerns, their need for additional resources, and we kind of make all those connections. So that's been really great for us here in Massachusetts. Next. We've had some barriers. I just talked about we're working with a lot of different partners. Our offices, we have specific programs in our offices in Roxbury, Lawrence, and Springfield. There are 3 different communities, 3 different challenges. Language is always a challenge for us in meeting the needs of a lot of our families. We have staff at the Federation that speak Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, Haitian Creole, and access to Vietnamese support for all of those families. And sometimes those things have to be translated to really get the access to those families. We're, you know, navigating between all those different partners. And sometimes that's, you know, just a balancing act and a communication barrier that we really have to work hard. When schools shut down here in Massachusetts, there was a lot of cancellation of the youth exploration and work programs, the internships, and that was hard for students because they had really, you know, had a lot of success in exploring work. And so we've been working with the vendors, and even this summer we were able to have a couple of internships and students connecting to their workplaces remotely. So it's happening, and it's a developing story here, and we'll probably continue that into the fall. One of the other things that has been a strength of, you know, really building up what's happening within one state was that we started to work together. And so the Federation and our Link Center staff are working and serving on a lot of committees. We have a Massachusetts Partnership for Transition to Employment, lots of agencies, lots of partners, all focused on developing resources for families and youth to access work. Last slide. Thank you. And one of the wonderful partnerships we have is with our State Department of Education. We are translating their guidance that they send out to the school districts, and we put them into brochures that are easy for families to read. It's easy to share, they can be downloaded, and we have a whole series of brochures. And this spring we came out with a Pre-ETS, Transition to Employment brochure, And that's now up on the website in English. It has been translated and it will be up on the website in 5 additional languages, but it's really just a nice tips brochure. It's easy access, easy to share if you're at a resource fair or if you're just sending material to a family. It's in family-friendly language, it's easy to access, and those are on our website, and we're willing to share those. So if anybody wants access to our brochures, you can go to our website or connect to me. And so that's the end of Massachusetts story, and I'm passing it on.
To Lisa in Missouri. Hi, my name is Lisa Bowles. I'm representing Impact, Missouri Parents Act here in Missouri, as the name would imply. And I'm actually here with Lindsay, my friend and colleague, Lindsay Hartzler. And she is with Pre-ETS here in Missouri.
Yep, I'm actually a pre-employment specialist with the University of Missouri.
Right, okay. So just to get us started, and I think you all can see how enthusiastic all of us are about what we're doing here. I think we all love working with youth and their families and giving them that sort of that leg up, you know. It's really exciting and I enjoyed hearing from everybody. So now how Missouri does it is a little bit different than maybe some of the other states as far as youth engagement, but it works very well with the model that Pre-ETS does, uses in the state of Missouri. So we have a program called Project Stellar. It focuses primarily on creating networks within a community and working together with members of those networks to provide direct engagement to youth with disabilities and their families. So now these groups are called Regional Transition Networks, or RTNs for short. Next slide. So now our stakeholders for our regional transition networks include Impact and Pre-ETS, of course, and then our Centers for Independent Living. As a matter of fact, when the first RTN that I was involved in, I was actually working for a Center for Independent Living, and that's actually how Lindsay and I met. And we also have members of other agencies like vocational rehab. We have school districts, law enforcement, any agencies that support individuals with disabilities, and like we will have local business owners involved as well. When I get into the events, you'll see we actually work on a very low budget, so we have to hustle for donations. So it's good to have a broad spectrum of people and have those business owners who support individuals with disabilities. We meet monthly, and most of those meetings include some sort of agency updates. So like, you know, Lindsay and I, especially because of the model that she follows, she's in the schools. And of course, I work with the parents and helping educate them on the special education system. So we both have relationships with school districts, and it's really nice for us to be able to come together and discuss those things and some of the challenges that we may be experiencing within our respective communities. So and then it also involves an action plan, which I have a sample for that later. Can we get into let's go to the next slide.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about our model for Pre-ETS in Missouri. VR has contracted with the University of Missouri to provide 24, or it's up to more now, regional specialists that work directly with students. The reason for contracting with the university was that we could kind of leverage the relationship that schools already had with the university, and then we were able to get into more schools and work with more students. Also with that model, we are able to directly work with students and create more of a relationship with that student, which kind of helped us during the pandemic when schools shut down. We already had relationships with the students, so we were able to call them, FaceTime them, email them directly, and provide services that way. And that also kind of led to more parent contact and family involvement. So while it wasn't the easiest pivot, it also helped us really get the parents more involved with their pre-ETS.
And Lindsay, you want to talk about just a little teeny little bit of detail on some of the things that you do when you're working with the youth, like some of the things that you've done in the community?
Yeah, sure. So we work in the 5 columns. Obviously we stay within those 5 columns, but a big thing that we do here in Missouri is Groundhog Job Shadow Month. And we try to provide each of our students with some type of job shadow during that month, which, brings our students out into the community, gives them better access and networking connections. And the other thing about us having regional specialists is we live in those communities that we're working in. So we kind of understand those connections too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So some examples of what we do, and I do want to stress too that network, that community network, it's pretty strong, and I've noticed that it's designed this way, but I have experienced and seen how that referral process is more seamless too. But just to kind of get into what we do with the youth specifically, is some examples would include like, I mean, aside from networking with the agencies, we have transition summits and transition skills days where, and they'll be on a regional basis. So it'll be during a weekday, and the invitations actually go through the school district, which is cool because what we find is that we're engaging youth whose parents are, maybe we have youth whose parents aren't engaged, but yet they're in a life skills class, and their life skills teacher brings them to this class, and then or to this summit or transition skills day. And that's like a little mini conference that day, and we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun on those days, but we also share their resources. We are another voice that's explaining those pre-employment skills that are so important for them to learn, and a lot of interpersonal skills, the path to the post-secondary education, whatever that looks like for them. And we try to increase, like, we try to make it the scope of it as broad as possible, because we're in that community. We already know kind of what the challenges are in that community, so we're able to address those. And we have done, some of our teams have done reverse job fairs. We had one team that was planning a job Olympics before COVID hit, so I don't know if we're going to pick that up next year or not. We could also
Sorry, I'm going to jump in, Lisa.
Sure.
I think a big benefit to these transition skills days is for our students that don't get outside of school or outside their home very often. Some of my students that go to these days have never been on a field trip. So this is a great chance for them to go outside of their, we have pretty rural area, pretty small town. They get to go outside of their school, outside of their community, and meet more with their peers, which I think is a huge piece of that. The other thing is, since we know our kids personally, we're able to kind of, hold their hand and lead them to the services that might benefit them. So while there might be a whole range of services there, we can kind of direct them to the places that might be able to help them the most.
Absolutely. Very good point. So, and then another thing too, that just to include, because some of our teams we've been around for a while, and we've got this pretty well down, and the schools and the families kind of expect this activity from us. And then we have newer teams that are still kind of establishing themselves. So their project that they are working on that year may include building a website or a Facebook page or something like that to kind of get those resources and pull in those stakeholders as well. So now many of the teams that had plans for youth events like during the spring are moving to a virtual format, which has been a really exciting challenge for me. I mean, honestly, very exciting challenge, because we have to figure out, okay, how are we going to offer this virtually, maintain this sort of conference, event atmosphere, and have it on demand, because not everybody's going to be in school the same day. So we have some challenges that we need to work on, and I'm actually really excited about it, because this whole situation of this, us having to work from home, everybody having to work from home and being educated from, has really pulled me outside of my comfort zone, and I've learned a lot. So that it's again just another challenge. Miriam, could we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so now you can see from the map on the, I guess that's the upper right-hand corner, that we do have some room to grow in terms of our RTNs. The colored counties are the ones with the colors in them are, they have an RTN that's already actively working, and a network that's already actively working and meeting and planning and all that stuff. And they have active action plans and all that kind of stuff. But we are working on growing that. And I think that actually works, because we have this different model where we are working in our community, and and each RTN is autonomous. I think that also works for the unique model that Pre-ETS follows in Missouri as well. Is that right, Lindsay?
Yeah, because each specialist will be part of a different RTN, and you can more directly, affect students. Everybody's
Right.
more familiar with their area and their students in that region.
Mm-hmm. So, and so now I know, like, the number of youth that are engaged directly. I know Lindsay talked about this, that there's a difference between giving somebody information and actually, letting them choose the path, but sort of holding their hand down that path. And that's the same way with these events that we hold. Is usually we have some sort of a vendor hall, and we have we make sure that the vendors are engaged also in the event. And we can, I mean, Lindsay might be working with a specific student that's there, and she can take them directly, or their teachers can take them directly to, I think you need to talk to this person with VR, because your next IEP meeting, we're gonna, they're going to be included in that meeting, because we're going to be talking about your transition or something like that. Or it could be something, they want to work in, gosh, our Department of Conservation has been involved in a lot of our events. Say somebody wants to work in that field, take them over there, introduce them, because I think all teenagers have a certain level of social anxiety, and it's always good to have that familiar face there that kind of helps them through that. So so that it's meaningful contact that we're making with the youth. So well, we can just go to the next slide. So to kind of get down to, how we do this and how we start. So say you're going, oh gosh, that RTN thing sounds really cool. Then it just takes a combination of purposeful networking and recognizing opportunities when they present themselves. I mean, with Impact, we do a number of non-pandemic, we do a number of trainings within the community. And that's actually how I started one very large RTN that we now have going. Is there was a case manager with a disability services organization. I said, hey, I need to talk to you, because I would really like to get this started in this community. That was St. Joe, by the way, Lindsay. So, and so, it's just an opportunity like that. But once we got together and we started talking about, hey, let's really do this. Then we had to identify our stakeholders, and then we had to invite the people in, and you know, the local Center for Independent Living was involved, the school district, law enforcement, was everybody in this community, and we ended up with a huge group that now has been whittled down to the people who really want to actively work and participate in the planning of an event, while the other ones are more like, hey, let me know when to show up and and what to bring, kind of thing. So it works out really, really well. And then we can just go to the next slide. I know we're getting over on our time. I'm trying to be respectful of your time here. So I just wanted to let you know that autonomy of RTNs is precious. It's I think it's very meaningful that each RTN decides what they're going to do within their community. However, within our organization, in our parent center, we do have some reporting necessities. So like each team is required to have an active action plan. And I mean, within reason, I mean, if they just finished a project, they might have to meet again to decide what they're going to do. But this action plan will include, just like any other project management tool, and that's the kind of the top one that's framed in blue. It's just a screenshot of it, but it just, you know, kind of follows a little bit of a timeline. I think, you know, we can use it as a tool in our meetings, but it also helps those of us in leadership get a kind of a snapshot of what's going on with that team. And each month they just put their notes at the bottom of that action plan and submit it to me. So it works out pretty well. And then the meeting notes, we just go ahead and include that with the action plan. Sometimes they're separate, so we're not having to scroll a long way to see what we did last meeting. And then we do have a very simple process. We've just got a document that they need to submit their budget on. And now we order a lot of stuff through Amazon Smile. And so when we do that, we just, you know, have them send the link to our operations coordinator, but and then of course data collection. So now each staff member, so they need the action plan, but they also need to collect survey data and enter all their activity in our database. And that's where we're able to track our data. And that's something that is always, I mean, of course, we have to make sure that everything is documented. But yeah, I really believe that we are having an impact on our communities with the activities that we're doing. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has, as is Lindsay. That's actually the end of my presentation. I just need to hand it back to Miriam to start the Q&A.
Okay, this is Maria, and I'm going to read out the questions that it's okay. I'm going to read out the questions that I have here. Dawn Lewis' question is, how can parents encourage school districts to participate in pre-ETS? Some of our local schools choose not to participate. When this happens, can parents still advocate for their child for direct participation? That's it.
We're all nodding our heads yes. So it's a conversation you have to have with your IEP team. Students are allowed to have work as a goal, as part of their vision of the future. What do they want to do after school? And the more the family knows about the Pre-ETS program, sometimes they need to bring that information to the team, because the team may not be aware that there is a program locally. So I would suggest families to get knowledgeable about the programs, and to have discussions at their IEP team, and encourage your youth, your young person, to self-advocate in these meetings, saying, I want to explore work and I want to have some options.
Yeah. And I just want to add, so in New York, schools is a vessel to get access, but we do not need to be specifically working with a school. So it's more about understanding, like Leslie said, what Pre-ETS is, who's providing the services, and how you can reach out to them.
And I think parent centers can be that one place source of information to connect a family to how it's working within your state.
Okay, this next question is from Laura Nada. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. What is reverse job fairs?
Oh, okay. We also call them candidate job fairs, and what they are is instead of the just like a traditional job fair, you show up, you've got your resume, and you go around to the different employers, prospective employers, and you know see what they do, what they have openings, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's reversed in a reverse job fair. The candidates actually set up their own tables, and they will have, a lot of times they'll have like poster boards that have like pictures of them working, like the work experience that they've been doing through, you know, Pre-ETS or, you know, their life skills class or something like that. And they're categorized by their interests and what they want to do, kind of what kind of job they're looking for. The employers actually show up and they go around to the candidate. So it's, and so what we do, like in the one that I'm most involved in, what we do is we have a work day the day before. So that's where they get to, we will actually do a little bit of, yeah, you know, kind of interview practice and maybe work on their elevator speech, and then help them finish up their displays and their resumes and get those all printed out. And then that way, when they show up for the candidate fair, they're good to go. They just need to be dressed for a job interview and in comfortable shoes. And so, yeah, it's a lot of, it's actually a lot of fun. We really enjoy doing it. I will have to say, anytime we have these RTN events, what I call them is can't believe I get paid to do this days, because they, everybody has, the atmosphere is just, it's exciting. We're making progress, and of course we're engaging with youth. And I know Lindsay and I, maybe we're weird, but we like teenagers. So.
Okay, thank you. I think we don't have any more time for questions, but here is your contact information of the panelists, the presenters, and everybody has access to this PowerPoint. You can download it from the GoToWebinar platform, or it's going to be sent to you also as well as the recording. To everybody who registered to this webinar will get the PowerPoint, the recording, the materials. So this is the contact information for our wonderful panelists. And thank you for joining us for this webinar. And as soon as the webinar is over, you will get a link with a little survey. We would like to hear from you. And Peg, if you have anything else to add.
So no, just thank you so much for the audience that tuned in. I know this gets to be a long day sometimes for all you Zoomers out there. And thank you so much to our RSA centers for being willing to share your expertise and experience. It makes it so much more a part of reality when we can see what's actually happening on the ground. So some really great ideas, great strategies, and thank you all again.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.